So we're having another beautiful picnic at Knight's Lake in Waterton. I'm going to give a little bit of a review of this because I listened to it. And we're having wonderful salad, some blueberries,
and wonderful water. Oh, sorry, yeah, the
yogurt.
Wow.
And anyway, so James is going to talk about something while I get food ready and can drink his pop because I won't be doing that.
Indulging what I presume is water in there.
Yeah.
Sugar? Yeah. Or was that
Oh,
water?
I got to get
Sugar.
the forks. I have my fork, but I didn't bring yours out. So you just keep talking about something.
Okay, so I'm going to review the trail today. National Geographic has apparently picked Crip Lake in Waterton, Alberta, Canada as one of the 20 most thrilling hikes in the world. Today, it felt like the most thrilling. There were a whole bunch of people. Were they figuring it was about 60 people today?
Yeah.
And I think every one of them had a close experience of not quite the worst kind with 3 grizzly bears. There was one party of people that actually ran across a black bear on top of that, an adult black bear. But
that's amazing.
It was a grizzly bear mom with two cubs.
Yeah,
and very civilized grizzly bear.
She was very smart. If she raises her kids to be as smart as she is, then they should be safe. Because they say that with the bears, if they have problem bears, and they think it's a problem if they're just bothering people at all, you know, not harming them or anything like that, then they kill them. So.
Well, she steered clear. I mean, she was on the trail, but as far as I'm concerned, the trail is just as much for bears as for people.
Yep.
It looks as though she was bringing, from my reading of it, bringing her cubs down from the heights, and it was quite high where she was starting off. And so far as we know, she could have come from even higher up.
Losing stuff.
I think she's coming down maybe to the flats off of Wishbone Trail, which connects up with Crip Lake Trail. And maybe she's going to build her den down in the flats.
I want to lose more of my food.
East of, let's say, Middle Waterton Lake or Lower Waterton Lake. Anyway, it was an eventful day. And I didn't even do the world-renowned part of the trail, which is basically the last part of the trail.
Yeah.
I don't want to take a risk with my back.
Yeah.
Anyway.
But, well, maybe you can, like with the new ladder that they have.
Apparently
you might want to try it.
Kind of resources there, or amenities. And
yeah.
Let's see how it goes.
It's a good-looking ladder. I didn't like the chain.
Well.
But I did like the ladder.
I don't know.
It might. I don't know.
These folks
I mean, it's not any higher up. Like, I didn't like that the cable was so low for most of the parts.
That's not good. That would be bad for me because I have a hard time bending over.
Yeah. Well, I think anybody would with the way it was. But it's not any better with the cable.
Yeah. Or with the chain.
Or, sorry, with the chain. That's what I meant. I just made a mistake because I'm tired.
Easy to make those kind of mistakes, and I apologize in advance.
So we have more salad than will fit in these little bowls.
Yeah, that's okay. Good to have extra. And Crip Lake, you're saying, was pretty good, eh?
Yeah, it looked beautiful.
Did you see the dog that made it all the way up there?
You know what? I probably did, but I don't know. I guess I just wasn't paying attention to that sort of thing.
Yeah, you would have been thinking about the bear, because I was still out in the trail.
I guess I was. Yeah, I was a little bit worried about... Well, as soon as I saw the bear and her cubs go back onto the trail, I was like, oh no, man. James is going to get the fright of his life.
Yeah, it wasn't even close. I've had way worse. But the worst was Akamina, maybe, when it comes to trail. Trying to start the difficult part of Akamina, the rock band.
What I'm going to do with that? I'll put it in the garbage, I guess, because I can't put it back in my container.
I had to pull the plug on that part of the trail. There's just no way my back can handle it.
Takamina. Yeah.
Yep. People got to know their limits.
Yep, they sure do. All right. So sesame dressing. Yummy. And I should have enough for the last bit too. So if you decide you're hungry enough, and there's enough salad and salad dressing for another. And there's your fork.
I almost put this down right in it. You really snuck that in.
And I guess I'm going to put this here so that it... Anyway, so we're good with that. And I will wash off the berries and talk about Peter, Paul, and Mary a little bit. So, what we've been doing lately is, since we have this van that has really high mileage, but has it's fully loaded, so we're kind of, enjoying it while we can and hoping it'll last as long as possible. But anyway, so it has a DVD player in it, and so what we've been doing is I will pick James up at the at his house, and I'm like a limousine driver, and I just drive
getting out here.
Yeah, so I drive us here and put on a DVD for James, and I picked out a bad DVD once. I thought it would be good because James likes tennis, but it was a movie and it was not a good movie. But James likes music a lot, so far I picked out 2 music DVDs for him to watch.
I enjoyed both of them. I mean, this one I found more informative than really, really gripping or whatever. So, based on your hearing, she wasn't watching it while she was driving. Have no fear.
No. But I was listening to it, and I enjoyed listening to the harmonies pretty good.
Yeah, their harmonies were pretty good, especially considering they were kind of like, not quite a super group, but they were put together. They weren't singing together when they were kids or even teenagers.
Yeah, well, they talked about their whole story, getting together, and I guess when they first sung together, they sang Mary Had a Little Lamb.
And, like I was commenting, I'd forgotten about that detail, but I said they're basically singers of kids' songs. Doesn't matter what they're singing.
Yeah, they
Could
do
be
sound
Puff,
like children's
Magic
entertainers.
Dragon, yeah. Or they tried Bob Dylan stuff, like Blowing in the Wind, but much of it is Pete Seeger kind of material, which is like preaching in Sunday school or something like that. If I had a hammer in the morning. Someone beat me to the punch about, that's not really the punch, but I say about Pete Seeger, if Pete had a hammer, if Pete had a sickle, no, he was a communist. I don't think he ever recanted being a communist, and that's the only thing you can do after he was a Stalinist. He was a communist, but Stalin was killing millions.
And well, I don't know if I really... A lot of people think of the 60s as being so political and everything, and
political now.
Yeah.
Different kind of politics. In some ways it's more political. I mean, it's heavily political.
But anyway, this delicious salad. So good.
But they did other kids' songs, and I'm going, I've got no problem with that. Puff and Magic Dragon, I think it's actually pretty good.
Well, they did that one political song about Ecuador, or was it Ecuador?
El Salvador, maybe?
Oh, El Salvador. Okay.
I'm going, well, I don't trust folks like that. I was mentioning to Pauline, I didn't hear him talk once about, I read this book, I'm researching this. They made a probably a fair amount of money. They were the biggest folk singers, maybe of all time, because Bob Dylan didn't really make it big until he switched over to rock and roll. They would have made some money. Did they spend it on education? I didn't grasp that. Someone, not a film producer, but a music producer, Phil Ramone, you've never heard of him, but I have. He's done a lot of stuff. And he was saying, these guys are really intellectual, and I'm going, yeah, based on what? I don't know if they're even as sharp as the average fine arts major.
Well, they were saying that the one song that one of them had written for another guy's wedding or something like that, they were saying that they donated all
the proceeds.
Profits from it to a foundation, but they didn't mention what foundation.
I've forgotten it. I think they might have, but it didn't seem terribly important. A lot of that stuff is just salesmanship, right? I'll give you an example. I can recall while I was doing janitorial work at the former Labor Club, taken over the city for a while. Now it's a mosque. But I was working there. There was some sort of charity going on. And there was this woman who was a replacement newsreader, Franca Catoni was her name. And she was there helping out. And she was honest about it. I always liked her as a newsreader. She said, well, we're supposed to do this kind of stuff. And I go, oh yeah, it's PR. Huh? It's anytime someone does charity and starts blatting their horn about it, you kind of have to wonder. You don't have to say, oh, it's automatically.
No, I think it's
PR.
funny because they were saying, at one point they were saying nobody gets into folk music thinking that they're going to make money or whatever.
No, that's interesting.
But
what about Albert Grossman? He was their manager. He's Bob Dylan's manager. And they were saying, I think it was around 69 or 70, they'd been like 7 years on the road. And I'm going, I've heard this story before. Like Bob Dylan lasted until about 66. And Grossman was just driving him. Because Grossman knew what you had to do to make money. And Bob Dylan kind of agreed to it. Now, understand, his opinion of Albert Grossman was, there must be some way out of here, said the joker, i.e. Bob Dylan, to the thief, i.e. Albert Grossman, if I'm not mistaken. So, it would be getting out of touring and rock sort of thing. You know, they say that typical celebrity, all they ultimately want is money. They don't want the fame, because people eventually turn on you. You know, everyone thought the Beatles were cuddly, wuddly, and all that sort of stuff. And then they started to do things like Revolver, and 66, lots of people in the world turned on. That's where in the southern United States, maybe elsewhere, they started burning Beatles records, Beatles wigs, and Beatles memorabilia and stuff like that. And it was just a kind of a little bit of a dark time for the Beatles, the last tour and so on and so forth. So, I don't know. I think Bob Dylan was probably pretty enthused about the money coming in. Yeah. He ended up getting a big spread out of all places. I thought he'd hang around New York. L.A. Can you imagine Bob Dylan in L.A.? It's just wrong. But apparently he had something like a real movie theater there. Not this is before the age of video and stuff like that. He loved movies. And he made lots of references in some of his better songs to movies. Basically did a better job of it. Excuse me, folks. Than, let's say, Bruce Springsteen. You know, like Thunder Road is the title of a Bruce Springsteen song. It's a pretty good title. It's a lousy movie star. Robert Mitchum, Thunder Road. It's a great title. I don't, hard to take it seriously as a movie. I've kind of watched it, for a while, and then I'm going, okay, I've got more interesting things to do.
Well, anyway, when they were talking about how people had protest signs, hammer and a sickle or whatever, and they were acting like they were so shocked, it's like they were saying, well, when you see injustices that your country is doing, you have to speak up or whatever and whatever. I was just thinking they were acting like it was a big shock and that they actually weren't communist or whatever.
I don't think they were. I think they were what commies called fellow travelers.
Yeah, okay.
So the Russian for that is Sputnik.
Mm-hmm.
So it'd kind of be like what the Germans call a Trabant or Trabant.
Uh-huh.
Probably comes from the Latin. It's just something, a satellite. Right?
Mm-hmm.
So there were lots of people, I think, that way that really weren't card-carrying communists.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think there's any doubt about Pete Seeger being a card-carrying communist.
Yeah.
And I haven't really been interested enough to find out if he ever did the George Orwell thing and turned on the commies. I've never heard about it. One of his songs.
But anyway,
we're watching something else.
Speaking of Pete Seeger, well, if they're going to cover, I know they covered other people's stuff and whatever, but if they're going to cover a Pete Seeger song, they have to expect that people are going to see them in the same sort of light, right?
You can't go around doing commie material and, like you say, expect people to give you a free pass.
Mm-hmm.
You should be able to do commie stuff, but with the understanding
that people are going to think you're a communist.
And like I frankly think it should be a member after these many years. It's over 100 years that the communists have been doing. This is Lenin's own formulation. I'm not making it up. Revolutionary terrorism. They're terrorists, and they should be declared traitors. Not to any individual country, but just to democracy generally.
And so, when they're doing not only like covering Pete Seeger, and then they're writing some song about Ecuador.
Well,
no, El Salvador.
El Salvador.
I made that mistake again.
Ecuador means equator. El Salvador means the savior.
Then yeah, of course people are going to see them that way.
Right? I don't know about the situation there. Pretty well anyone on the left wing, and this includes me, I was not nearly as enthused. I can remember actual card-carrying
well, when you
person
put down your country's foreign policies.
I don't care about the country. When you put down a democracy's foreign policy, then I've got a problem.
And it's understandable when the citizens of that democracy are a little bit peed off. Right?
They've been teed off ever since the 60s. And that's why Richard Nixon got elected. That's why Ronald Reagan got elected. That's why George Bush Jr. got elected. And they even got teed off the Republicans, and then they elected Donald Trump. He did a hostile takeover of the Republicans. It's like Bernie Sanders wanted to do a hostile takeover of the Democratic Party, and the Democratic Party put their foot down. The Republican Party should have done that with Donald Trump. They should have said, you've always been a card-carrying Democrat, you don't believe the stuff that we believe in. And he doesn't. They're so hungry for power, they decided to collaborate. Now use that word advisedly, collaborate with them.
Will you want more, or should I just put it away?
Save that for when we get back, I think.
Okay. So you go ahead and keep talking.
Okay. Maybe you can tell me in passing how much time I got left. 2 minutes?
You have about 10.
Wow.
9. Yeah.
So yeah, I'm tired of people trying to rehabilitate, and that's a kind of like a commie term, rehabilitate people. Rehabilitate Pete Seeger. You know, I haven't heard him actually recant his major contributions to the communist movement, starting with even presumably before the Weavers and stuff like that. So it's like trying to rehabilitate, only it's a tougher job. Rehabilitate Brian Mulroney. A lot of people think that Donald Trump's a huge innovation.
I forgot to bring wet wipes out. Did you want one?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Anyway, some commentator was saying about Canada, it's always 5 years behind the United States. Okay, Pierre Trudeau comes to power at 68.
Mm-hmm.
John F. Kennedy, 60. So they had their charisma guy in the U.S. Here in Canada, we had Trudeau 8 years later, not even 5 years later. The Americans had a kind of a, before Kennedy, a right-wing backlash with Eisenhower. He's not terribly right-wing by comparison with some of the folks that came later. When did that start? Early 53. Canada, I think it started about 57 with John G. Diefenbaker. I don't know what the G stands for. Golly G. Anyway, but we actually preceded the United States in terms of electing a populist government. Our conservative government cratered, even worse than George Bush's government. In the wake of 2008, they went down to from I think 100 plus seats to 2. Do you even remember that?
No.
That's in the early 90s. Just
Wow.
cratered, and that's why the so-called Reform Party, I always called it the Deform Party, was able to take over the Conservative Party. So Stephen Harper was a right-hand man of Preston Manning, who was a son and loyal son to his father, to his father's tradition. His father was a social credit leader, and Ernest Manning, from what I can tell, was pretty loyal to the founder of the social credit movement in Canada. I think his name was William Aberhart, or Heartless. Anyway, that's just kind of a pretty feeble joke. But yeah, the guy who founded it was a guy called Major Douglas. I don't know what his first name is or was. Died a long time ago. Should have been an embarrassment, as I say so often. And he was apparently more anti-Semitic after World War II, openly,
Wow.
than he was before. Major Douglas. The Canadian government during World War II.
Well, at least Peter, Paul, and Mary weren't anti-Semitic.
Well, 2 of them, I think. You know, someone joked about them. Wow, look at this. They've got a real image. 2 rabbis and a hooker. I'm going, that's a little unfair to her. You know what I'm saying?
That's very unfair.
I think she was, she was a smoker, and she's ended up paying for it, but even worse, she's an eater. Wow.
Oh, I didn't see.
Of course.
Yep.
Just takes up the whole screen. Her face, or if she's there with the 2 guys who kind of maintain relatively trim figures, she just takes up all of the stage. Now, people can say, "Oh, that's fat negative." And I think there's this term, fat positive, or something like that.
Well, there's body positive.
Body positive. There we go. Yeah. Anyway, here's the deal, folks.
You really polished that off.
Thirsty. So,
okay.
Nature does not like excess fat. It will kill people stone cold. Give them gout. Give them diabetes. You don't have to pack that out in the car. Well, the garbage is
I know.
over there.
Yeah, I saw it. All right, you have 4.5 minutes.
There you go. So pardon me chowing down, folks, but I built up a huge calorie deficit in the trail today. I think it's minimum 16 kilometers. which I think would be something like 10 miles both ways, or return trip. And could be something like 700 meters rise, 750 meters rise from trailhead. So that would be over 2,000 feet rise from trailhead. We'll work out. Anyway, there was this huge attempt. Now, the one thing I commented, this is important. They were showing about the
I don't want
March
the
on
apple,
Washington.
do you?
I do, yeah.
You do?
But not right now.
Okay.
No, I'll leave it later.
Do you want the yogurt now?
Yeah.
Okay.
March on Washington in 1963. Martin Luther King was there, a few other folks. They're saying, 250,000, 300,000 people. It's awesome. Later on, the left got together something, a big march. They were saying 500,000 people, 1969. Maybe early in 69, probably in the middle of it. I'm going, wow, that's interesting. What they were doing when they were demonstrating, presume in Washington, was those 500,000 people was demonstrating their ineffectualness. Why? You see, if those folks, some of them at least, who would have been over 18, had voted for Hubert, held their noses, and voted for Hubert Humphrey, they could have got Hubert Humphrey elected. Check it out. What was the margin of difference in defeat for Hubert Humphrey in 1968? 500,000 people. I don't really, it doesn't warm the cockles of my heart when I see people out demonstrating. I want to see people demonstrating by turning up at the ballot boxes. That's what I want to see. And when they didn't in 1968, these stupid left-wingers, Hubert Humphrey, he's vice president for Lyndon Johnson. Lyndon Johnson's a warmonger. Hubert Humphrey's about as liberal as you could get. Minnesota. Gosh. And it's time the folks who were organizing these demonstrations or disorganizing them take responsibility for the stupidity that we were seeing in 68, 69. You dumb folks got Richard Nixon elected. What are you thinking? Now, don't go patting yourself on the back. You know, you're going to throw out, you're doing it so much, you're going to throw out both of your shoulders. Separate your shoulders. Enough said. What's a minute left?
Yeah.
Smoke on that for a minute.
All right, well, there's the view of the water right behind us. So I got to see that. James isn't. His back's to it.